When MUFON began, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have copiers, we didn't have computers, we didn't have databases except piles of paper, and somehow we still struggled through and made things happen. I was lucky to be contacted by Walt Andrus. Walt is really the guy that had the dream of the MUFON. And he had that dream before there was a MUFON. And he was a member of APRO at the time. I had no intention of ever being in an organization. He came along and said, well, you would really like to be an APRO member because we really investigate UFOs. I said, well, okay. So I ended up being an field investigator and a consultant for APRO for a while. And then I'll get a little bit more back on track, but he asked me Kathy and I, if we would host a lawn party for people he knew were interested in UFOs and he had worked with in his tri-state group. And we said, sure, we'd like to do that. I don't think she was too thrilled at the time, but it turned out it was a great idea. These people were nice people. You can just look at the people that are there. Dr. Harry Bird, medical doctor in Illinois. Ray Wright, a professional person in a corporation. Willard Armstrong. Dr. Willard Armstrong was professor of chemistry at Washington University. And then we go on with more and more of those people. Well, they all, by the way, came to this lawn party we had. And they all figured out that none of us were really weird. We were just interested in something really good. And that lawn party was the genesis of what turned into to MUFON. Walt also stressed the need to talk to government officials. Anyone you can, anytime you can. And Cliff knows how to do this because he got myself and him an opportunity to speak to a Colorado congressman many years later. But in 1970, we were appeared to show up on the Bill Field show in St. Louis. And the guest was Senator Alan Dixon, very strong science advocate senator at the time. And he showed like he was interested in this subject. In 1971, we started this annual proceedings book. And if you know, MUFON's got all of those now. In the 2000s, when I took over MUFON to get rid of those cabinets, the first thing I had done was had all of the proceedings and all of the journals scanned in word searchable format. And all the board director people got copies of that. So that's still available. In 1973, we were getting more and more people calling, hey, we're not in Midwest, but we'd like to be in your organization. So we talked about it. Now, how do we have people from California in a Midwest UFO network? Well, the simple thing is you change the first word. You keep MUFON. It became Mutual UFO Network. And that worked out just fine, and we still got it. I was called into an office with 4 vice presidents at McDonnell Douglas. And they said, John, you know why you're here? No. I was like, you're going to fire me? And they said, I'm not going to use the man's name. He may not care for that. He may not even be around anymore. But he said, do you know so-and-so at Johnson Space Center? I said, no, I never heard of the man. And he said, shake your head, yes. Say, yes, I do. I said, okay, yes, I do. Okay, well, in 2 weeks, your job's in Houston. I went home and told Kathy, we just bought a new house, and it was settling down. So we moved to Houston. And actually, it turned out to be one of the best things we could have done. We got to rub elbows with a lot more technical people. Contractor-wise, government official-wise, et cetera. when I got to Houston, Walt had referred me to a person he knew there was a doctor, a medical doctor, and his name was Howard Sussman. Well, Dr. Sussman called me and said, Walt says you're in town, and I'm interested in UFOs. Well, he was more than interested. He really knew a lot about it. And I was amazed by his knowledge. And so I said, let's get together. Well, the next thing, he introduced me to KTRH radio, which is a wide-ranging AM station. They had a talk host. The talk host was Frank Haley. And this guy had a broadcast voice like you could never believe. It was just marvelous. But he also had an interest in the paranormal, more so in UFOs. And so I got introduced to Frank. Frank asked me to come to the station and talk about UFOs. And then the next thing I knew, he was out at our house, broadcasting a UFO report from our house. And that was fun. And Frank was able to get his finger in the door on a lot of cases. And when he did, he shared that information with me. And one of the cases he had in several years later was one that involved military people in New Mexico. And he popped that out on the air and mentioned the name of the person who supposedly had this very serious UFO incident. One thing I'll say about UFOs, people say, are they real? I said, well, yeah, they're real. Ask the Navy. Ask the MUFON investigators. Ask the ATIP people. And all of these others. These things are way beyond us.